The tragic and unexpected passing of Diana, Princess of Wales, rocked the world to its core. Even all these years later, it remains one of the most impactful and disturbing events in recent memory. I was just starting out my career as a journalist when it happened, and it shook me to my foundations. I had always admired Diana. Her warmth, compassion, and connection with ordinary people seemed to humanize the monarchy in a way it had never been before. She brought a refreshing informality and modernity to the House of Windsor. So to wake up that fateful morning in August 1997 to the news of her shocking death in a car accident in Paris was almost unbelievable. As a young reporter, I headed into the newsroom that day not knowing how we would even begin to report on such a catastrophic event. The mood was sober and subdued, the usual bustle replaced by a heavy silence. How could mere words encapsulate the complicated life and tragic end of this global icon? We sat pondering which of the thousands of famous photographs of Diana throughout the years would suffice to tell the story. Frankly, we were all still stunned. Has this really happened? Was the recurring mantra that long day. What followed over the next week was utter mayhem, as the monarchy floundered in the wake of Diana's death, with the Queen retreating to Balmoral and declining to return to London or even publicly address the shocking event. Meanwhile, crowds gathered spontaneously outside Kensington Palace to openly grieve and lay mountains of flowers. There was a rising tide of public anger aimed at the royals for their cool response. Tony Blair, the new Prime Minister, stepped in as the unofficial spokesperson for the country, calling Diana the People's Princess and urging the Queen to make a statement. It was undoubtedly the most challenging and emotional time of my early career. As reporters, we tried to make sense of it all and chronicle those extraordinary days of mass hysteria that followed Diana's passing. From the millions who lined the streets of London for her funeral cortege to the sea of flowers outside her home, the public outpouring of love and loss was unprecedented. The monarchy itself seemed shaken to the core. Every day brought new developments: Diana's brother castigating the royal family at her funeral, the Queen finally addressing the nation, Princes William and Harry walking behind their mother's coffin. As journalists, we worked round the clock trying to eloquently put into words the indescribable grief sweeping Britain and the world. Now, all these years later, reliving those traumatic days through a dramatized version in The Crown seems almost too much to bear. While the creators insist they will not depict the crash itself, simply revisiting the surrounding chaos, conspiracy theories, and intense emotion feels too raw even 2 decades later. The actual events were dramatic enough without further sensationalizing. Some wounds do not fully heal with time. For those of us who reported firsthand on that historic week and witnessed the monarchy and nation convulse with shock and sorrow, it remains etched forever in our memories. No television show could do justice to living through the sudden death of an iconic figure that changed Britain overnight. The loss of the People's Princess left scars on the psyche of the country that have not completely faded, even after all these years. Reopening those old wounds by dramatizing such a painful chapter of history may prove an emotional step too far for many even now. Some things are best left undisturbed in the past. How could someone so full of light, so vibrant and luminous, die in such a mundane, preventable way as a car crash caused by a drunk driver? It seems impossible that someone like Princess Diana, who brought so much joy and inspiration to the world, could have her life cut short so tragically. The reaction to Diana's untimely passing showed just how beloved she was around the world. Even those who had previously criticized her or painted her negatively were struck silent with grief. Her death revealed a deep longing amongst people for a sense of connection and meaning that had been lost since the excess and greed of the 1970s. The Queen's reaction was puzzling. She remained oddly silent in those first days, not offering any kind of tribute or statement about the tremendous loss. This stunned collective outpouring of grief at Diana's passing marked an end to the famously stoic British stiff upper lip. People openly mourned and cried in the streets, flocking to Buckingham Palace to leave flowers and offerings. It was a powerful moment of shared emotion. Sadly, the era depicted in the latest season of The Crown brings back memories of the soulless greed is good mentality of the late 90s. Even all these years later, we may reflect that while we didn't have the answers back then about what really matters in life, we still struggle to find meaning and connection in today's world. Wealth and excess ring hollow without deeper purpose. Of all the actresses who have portrayed Diana, Elizabeth Debicki truly captures her spirit. Yet even with a compelling performance, the pain of reliving those traumatic days between the accident and the funeral is too much for me to watch. The rawness may have faded over time, but the profound sadness still lingers. That sadness is there in the Mother's Day cards that William and Harry's children make for the grandmother they never met. It's palpable in the door statue erected at Kensington Palace that fails to embody Diana's vibrant energy. But most of all, the lingering grief is evident in the ongoing rift between her two sons. Surely if she had lived, Diana would have done everything in her power to prevent that bond from fraying. Prince Harry in particular seems broken and lost without her guidance. We know from Harry's raw and revealing memoir, Spare, that he remains tormented by anger and distrust over her death. Next year he turns 40, the same age Diana was when she died. Will he ever find peace? Losing his mother at such a formative time has left him with deep wounds. While we may question some of his choices, his ongoing grief over losing his mother so young is understandable. The final month of Diana's life was baffling. She seemed to both court and shun the paparazzi's lenses all at once. She longed to forge a new independent life, and yet was living one that clearly did not fulfill her. Her romance with Dottie Fade appears to have been just a temporary fling, a distraction from her broken heart over the one man she truly loved, Hasnat Khan. Diana died with so much yet unfinished: her loves, her life's purpose, her dreams for the future. As Dominic West eerily recounts as Prince Charles, Diana's passing was the biggest thing any of us have ever seen. Even after all this time, the enormity of that tragic event still resonates. I do not need to relive those painful days and their aftermath. The loss of Diana shows that even the most admired and cherished among us can be taken far too soon. All we can do is honor her generous spirit by living life to the fullest, with purpose, compassion, and joy. That is the greatest tribute we can offer someone so luminous. Dear friend, if you like everything new about the royal family and don't want to miss all the novelties, subscribe to our channel and like it. By doing so, you take part in our development. We work for you.